Incredibly, last year, drug companies hired over 1,700 lobbyists. There are 535 members of Congress. They got 1,700 lobbyists from the pharmaceutical industry, 3 lobbyists for every member of Congress. Meanwhile, as Americans die because they cannot afford the medications they need, the pharmaceutical industry makes higher profits every year. But it turns out that on one of the most important matters facing the American people, Democrats, Republicans, independents, progressives, moderates, and conservatives are all united. And they are united on the need to take on the outrageous corporate greed in the pharmaceutical industry and to substantially lower the incredibly high prices we pay for prescription drugs in this country. On that issue, the American people are quite united. Today, millions of Americans are forced to make the unacceptable choice between feeding their families or buying the medicine they need to ease their pain or to stay alive. Seniors from Vermont to Alaska are forced to split their pills in half because they don't have enough money to fill their prescriptions. Madam President, all over this country, every state in this country, the American people are asking some pretty simple questions. They want to know, how does it happen that in the United States we pay by far, not even close, the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs? How does that happen? Why is it, people are asking, that nearly 1 out of every 4 Americans cannot afford the prescriptions that their doctors write? Think about how crazy that is. People walk into a doctor's office to get a diagnosis. Doctor writes out a script. They can't afford to fill that prescription. They get sicker. Maybe they end up in the emergency room. Maybe they end up in the hospital. Maybe they die. People are asking, how does it happen that nearly half of all new drugs in the United States cost more than $150,000 a year? $150,000 a year. How does it happen that in Canada and other major countries, same exact medications manufactured by the same exact companies are sold for a fraction of the price that we pay in America? Simple question. Question Democrats, Republicans, Independents, everybody wants an answer to that. Well, the truth is that the answer to that question, in my view, is not complicated. And in fact, it can be summed up in just 3 words, and that is unacceptable corporate greed. Unacceptable corporate greed. Is it morally acceptable that the business model of the pharmaceutical industry today is primarily not to create the life-saving drugs we need for cancer, Alzheimer's, heart disease, diabetes, and so many other terrible illnesses, but rather, through their excessive greed, to make as much money as they possibly can? There was once a time when the inventors of life-saving drugs were not obsessed with making huge sums of money, but were instead obsessed with ending the terrible illnesses that plagued humanity. In 1921, Dr. Banting, along with 2 other scientists at the University of Toronto, invented insulin, drug we're hearing a whole lot about now. When Dr. Banting was asked why he wouldn't patent insulin and why he sold the rights to his invention for $1, he replied, quote, "Insulin does not belong to me, it belongs to the world," end of quote. Frederick Banting. while Dr. Banting sold his patents for insulin for $1 so that humanity could benefit from his discovery, I should point out that Eli Lilly, one of our nation's largest drug companies, has increased the price of insulin by 1,200% over the past 27 years to $275, while it costs just $8 to manufacture. Selling it for $275 costs $8 to manufacture. Not quite the spirit of Frederick Banting. Now is the time to stand with the American people and substantially lower prescription drug prices in our country. And the Health, Education, Labor, Pension Committee is going to be actively involved in that process.